Who is Tim Ballard and what can his story teach parents? On the eve of the biographical film about Ballard, The Sound of Freedom, we will understand what modern kidnapping is and what can be done to reduce the scale of the problem. According to the plot of the film, The Sound of Freedom, Tim Ballard is now in his 50s. He has been happily married for more than 20 years. He has 7 children of his own and 2 adopted. But he himself says that he feels like the father of dozens and hundreds of children. In the early 2010s, Tim, a special agent of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, quit his honorable and highly paid job, refused a pension, which he did not reach in a matter of months, and went to Colombia. He was on the trail of traffickers of underage children. At the beginning of the picture, we see a poor family from Honduras who is looking for opportunities to escape from poverty. And the opportunity comes to the house in the person of a pretty woman who offers her brother and sister Miguel and Rosia to try themselves as models. The children are taken to the audition, they are photographed by a professional photographer, and then, when the father comes to pick them up from the agency, he finds only a closed door. Miguel and Rosia fall into slavery, and it is their story that is intertwined with the story of Tim Ballard, played by James Caviezel, by hook or by crook, by pure methods and not too much. The special agent goes out to those who sold Miguel to American pedophiles pimps. He gives an 8-year-old boy a promise to find his older sister at all costs. So begins a journey to South America, in which Ballard will have to make friends with the most dubious people and visit the most terrible places to save Rosia, and many more children whom he will later call his own. What do you need to know about kidnapping? Fact number 1. The term kidnapping in a narrow sense means the abduction of a child on the street, in a public space, or from home in the absence of relatives. The same thing called human trafficking. Human trafficking, as a rule, is carried out by more subtle methods. The kidnapper insinuates himself into the confidence of the parents and the child, offers some services and promises career prospects. For the time being, his work does not look like a kidnapping. And unlike many kidnappers, the child trafficker then does not demand a ransom. As the hero of Sounds of Freedom says, you sell drugs once, and a child can be sold several times a day for 10 years. There would be connoisseurs of young bodies. Fact number 2. According to the annual UN study, the global average prevalence of human trafficking is 0.37 people per 100,000 population. Children of both sexes make up 35% of the total number of victims. Deciphering these figures, we can say that in conditional Moscow about 45 people fall into slavery every year, of which 15 are children. But this is only the visible part of the iceberg. The UN statistics are based on the rescued people. Fact number 3. For what purposes are children stolen? The key areas of trade are as follows: sexual exploitation, forced labor, usually in agriculture and in local factories, working as a servant without the right to leave the house, sale of organs, illegal adoption, begging. Fact number 4. In the last 20 years, the share of abductions of boys and men has grown significantly in the world, from 16% of the total in 2004 to 40% in the early 2020s. Fact number 5. The breeding ground for the emergence of traffickers and an increase in the number of abductions of children are conflict zones, fighting, refugee crisis, how to deal with kidnapping and human trafficking. Since 2017, the number of people charged under articles related to kidnapping and human trafficking has been steadily decreasing worldwide. The UN has already recorded a 27% decline. The key measures helping to combat such crime are of an international nature. The fight against human trafficking is helped most by universal digitalization and the creation of unified databases on identified cases. Kidnappers who escape justice in one part of the world used to be able to easily move to another and start from scratch. Now it has become much more problematic. But this is a global story that each of us influences only to a small extent. What do parents need to know to minimize the risks of kidnapping and selling a child here and now? 1. The prelude of abduction is grooming, which nowadays often happens online. Grooming in psychology is called the process of making friends of an attacker with a child. The kidnapper seeks to establish good relations with the child so that he trusts him and, in fact, is complicit in his own disappearance. According to statistics, only 8 days pass between the beginning of grooming online and the first meeting of a child with a criminal. Therefore, it is important to be aware of what new online friends your child has and how their communication is built. This does not mean that it is necessary to monitor every correspondence. It is enough to be interested in what the child lives on the web and openly talk about it too. The child should know by heart from a very young age the most important information that will help to identify him: first name, last name, address, phone numbers, and first names of parents 3. The kidnappers are trying to identify the weaknesses of the child or his family and put pressure on them. Explain to the child what information can be shared with strangers and what information cannot. For example, information about family income, about the experiences and problems of parents, about their work schedule is something that an attacker can use to create psychological pressure. 4. The task of the abductor is to psychologically and physically isolate the victim from the family and those who can protect. It may be some kind of alliance, some kind of secret from parents, or it may be an attempt to take away somewhere. Talk to the child about the algorithm of actions in case someone forces him to do what he does not want. Let your son or daughter know how to firmly say no and stop communicating with someone they don't like, and also know the phone numbers of the police and the rescue service. In any incomprehensible situation, a child should first of all contact his parents and understand that this is his basic, inalienable right, and that a person who undermines parental authority with his words and actions is potentially dangerous. 5. Share information about how the child lives with other parents and spread knowledge about both kidnapping and kidnappings, as well as about the hobbies of children. Yes, sometimes for this you will have to watch 10 episodes of 3 Cats and tell your friends about them. And yet, the more aware the whole society is and the better we know the life of our children, the higher the chances of noticing something wrong in time. Despite the heavy topic, the thriller directed by Alejandro Monteverdi is more inspiring than depressing. The archetypal story of the struggle of David, a lonely little hero, against Goliath, a transnational criminal network, is presented here effectively and dynamically, and Tim Ballard appears quite a hero of our time, controversial, ambiguous, but still a man without whom the world would be a little worse.